Will a third period benching spark Jonathan Huberdeau to turn his game around as we look back at the career of Mike Vernon? Hey everyone, welcome into Burning Questions, your weekly look at the Calgary Flames. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia Calgary Flames writers Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin. And guys, a lot has been made of the third period benching of Jonathan Huberdeau on Tuesday as the $10.5 million man continues to struggle out of the gate. Wes, what does Huberdeau need to do to stay on the ice?
Well, it's a great question, and they can't take him off the ice again right away in I guess, what it would mean big picture. This is already sort of controversial. I understand why Flames head coach Ryan Huska made the decision he did the other night. Jonathan Huberdeau understands why he made the decision he made the other night, but, the reality of it is, and why it's such a trouble spot for the Flames, is Huska called it an off night for Huberdeau. And the big picture reality is there's been too many off nights for Huberdeau. This wasn't about the way he played on Tuesday as much as it's about the fact that Jonathan Huberdeau has had an underwhelming impact in now a season and change with the Calgary Flames. He's averaged 0.67 points per game for the Flames, which would be a reasonable number for a lot of guys, but not for a player who's used to producing a lot more than that and is now being paid the highest contract in Flames franchise history. And so, how do you keep him on the ice? Well, the simple answer to that is what we're going to see on Friday against the Maple Leafs. They're going to put him back on the top line. They're going to leave him on the top power play. They're going to show confidence in him. But a bigger question is, how do you get what you're expecting out of Jonathan Huberdeau? How do you help a guy who has admittedly lost his confidence again rebuild that? And how does that then translate into some offensive pop? Because this is a guy who's signed for 7 seasons beyond this one. This isn't about, how do we get more out of him on Friday and Saturday? This has to be a real long-term thing for the Calgary Flames. And the concern is that it doesn't look right now like Jonathan Huberdeau is having or is going to have the impact they thought he would.
Yeah, and I think the question at some point becomes, what do we even expect from him? What does Jonathan Huberdeau at his best look like? Because we haven't seen it with the Calgary Flames, and it's not like there have really even been flashes this season where you've seen him take over games. He's been very pedestrian, to put it plainly. So, Wes is right. The problem is this: there has to be a solution to this. And last year we saw with Daryl Sutter. We know Daryl was hard on Huberdeau behind the scenes. We know that they didn't get along, but he kept him in the lineup. He played him basically on that second line, weirdly on the right wing for the most part, but with Nazem Kadri. He did everything he could to get him going, and it frankly did not work. And Huberdeau has regressed this year in terms of the numbers. He's not on pace to get 50-plus points. He's on pace to get around 40 points. So what he has to do to stay in the lineup, I think he's in the lineup one way or another going forward. But the sad reality is that this either works or the Flames are in a real bind for a really long time.
Yeah, well, despite Huberdeau's struggles, the Flames are turning things around a little bit here, and it's a big 3-game Eastern Canada road trip for Calgary this weekend. Danny, what would be a successful roadie for the Flames, in your opinion?
A little bit more of the same. I think that if you go back to the Dallas game, that's 3 games ago, and they lost that game to the Stars, but I think we saw them really turn a corner there. And I love the way they played, particularly late against the Nashville Predators, and I think that they played well against the Seattle Kraken. I think we've seen Nazem Kadri come alive. He looks like a different player than he did those first couple games, and maybe we all needed to have, myself included, a little bit more patience with the guy. But you're seeing guys like Connor Zary, Emile Poirier come in. I think that we're seeing Rasmus Andersson. He returned from that 4-game suspension, and that's an immediate boost. It's their best defenseman getting him back. So, of course, that's better. But I think that we have a lot of reasons to feel encouraged about the Calgary Flames right now, and the way that they took a little time to figure out their systems, maybe had some off games that we didn't like, but I think they have rounded the corner, and you just want to see them continue to build step by step and get better.
Let me just start because Danny mentioned a Flames prospect of yesteryear in Emile Poirier, obviously referring to Martin Pospisil and the impact he's had on that third line. So just before it feels like we've turned back the clock to 2015 or so, a quick clarification there. I think the rest of it is bang on. What the Flames need out of this 3-game road trip to Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal is not to take a step back. Is it going to mean 3 straight wins? I don't know, but they can't go back to the team that surrenders way too many high danger chances. They can't go back to being the team that has a couple of very obvious holes in their forward lines, and that has a lot to do with the impact that Connor Zary and Martin Pospisil have had so far on this team. So I think it's just, regardless of the record, and you'd hope to come back with 4 of 6 points anyways, it's just about not taking a step back. And then the other storyline I'll throw in there for this trip is we saw Dustin Wolf get recalled from the minors, obviously a goaltending prospect that has a lot of people excited. We think it probably means that Jacob Markstrom is dealing with a minor injury. So, that's something to watch on this trip. Does Dustin Wolf get into his second NHL game? And if he does, can he push to be the latest call-up who kind of says, hey, I'm not going anywhere?
Finally, Friday's game marks the start of Hockey Hall of Fame induction weekend. Wes, you grew up in the Calgary area. As Mike Vernon gets his Hall call, what is his legacy in his home city?
And this isn't so much my opinion as a Calgary area kid, but his former teammates would tell you his legacy is the Stanley Cup banner hanging in the Saddle Dome. I chatted earlier this week with Lanny McDonald and with Al McInnes, and they both remember 3 saves in overtime of Game 7 in the opening round against the Vancouver Canucks. 3, and they can tell you who the player was, what the circumstances were. Mike Vernon made 3 saves in that overtime to make sure that the Calgary Flames weren't eliminated before that Stanley Cup run could even really get started. And so a really cool honor, obviously, for Mike Vernon, a guy who grew up in Calgary, played junior in Calgary, obviously backstopped the Flames to their only championship. And I know, talking to the alumni, even talking to his former neighbors, there's a ton of people in this city who are really excited about what they feel is an overdue induction for Mike Vernon.
Yeah, should be a really cool moment there. Danny, your thoughts?
I mean, I just want to talk about Emile Poirier, really. But no, I mean, I think Wes said it really well. I'm not from the Calgary area, so I don't have the same relationship with Mike Vernon, but he is truly one of those just icons in this city. And I do think that Stanley Cup winning team, it means a lot. I think that when your team has won a cup, when your team has won a championship, it puts you in elite company. And I rightfully think Mike Vernon is a guy who, everyone around Calgary knows he's up there with the Lanny McDonalds, those legends. And it's a cool moment for the city and for the hockey community to sort of go back and honor one of their own and maybe walk down memory lane a little bit for a special time in Calgary history.
Yeah, very well said. Should be a great weekend for sure. Have questions about the Flames you want answered? Send them to calgaryflames@postmedia.com and we'll answer them here. For Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time on another Burning Questions.